Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at the astrology for the week ahead. There are a number of really significant transits coming up this week, including a Mercury square to Pluto that's taking place today on the same day that a full moon in Scorpio is taking place opposite Uranus. That's a significant little window of activity that's taking place today. We will spend a good amount of time talking about that. But we also have the Sun conjoining Uranus toward the end of the week and Mercury squaring Mars at the end of the week. So, bookending the week here with some pretty significant, more dynamic transits, you could say. So, we're going to look at all of that today. I will say a little bit about how the full moon is landing for the fixed signs today, since the full moon is landing in a fixed sign, the fixed sign of Scorpio. I'll sort of go through some brief whole sign house reminders for the fixed signs. As the week goes on, we'll probably do some horoscopes for the Sun conjoining Uranus in the sign of Taurus for all 12 signs. That can be a really nice transit, but more about that shortly. Anyway, so that is our agenda for today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, but you listen regularly, we hope that you will consider this a place that is a part of your daily spiritual practice with astrology. Make it your home. Give us the subscribe. It helps us grow. We appreciate it a lot. Transcripts of any of these daily talks can be found on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. There is a new monthly webinar that I'm giving coming up. I want to show you that first today. Go to the events page, go to live talks. You'll see I'm giving a talk on the meaning of Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer. That is the ingress we are all anticipating from Jupiter in June. So we're going to study this from the ancient Hellenistic perspective. What makes Jupiter so special in the sign of Cancer? And do a deep dive into the relationship between Jupiter and the goddess in the sign of Cancer. So that's coming up on May 15th. Register to attend the webinar. If you can't make it live when you register, you'll get the recording afterward. You can watch or listen on your own time. Now, if you scroll up, you'll notice that the in-person events tab is back because we are soon approaching the 0 Cancer marker in the Northern Hemisphere. That's the summer solstice. But regardless of which hemisphere you are in, it's a nice moment to be intentional about. We will be holding a summer solstice gathering here in Minneapolis at the Grapevine Collective on Saturday, June 21st from 6 to 8:30 p.m. It is free to attend. Just make sure you RSVP so we know how much tea and how many cookies to bring. But we hope to see you there for some meditation on the solstice and a time for group meditation and sharing. Also, if you go to the courses tab, click on first year course. We are in enrollment season for the year 1 program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It begins June 22nd. It is almost the deadline for our early bird rate, so you can learn everything there is to know about the program on that page. Also, at the end of today's video, during every video in enrollment season, at the end of the content daily, there's an additional info video that's attached at the end. So you can learn more about the program in depth, and I take you through everything the program includes more specifically. At the bottom of this page on the website, you'll find the early bird payments, which are only available till May 15th. So you have just a little bit of time, literally at the end of this week, to take advantage of that. So be sure that you do. And tuition assistance is available for all of our programs. So if you are someone who is needing a little bit of help for whatever reason, maybe you're on disability, or you're only working part-time, or you're a single parent, or you're on a fixed or limited income, please do take advantage of that. It's there to make sure that a spiritual topic like astrology is accessible. So anyway, on that note, let us now turn our attention to the real-time clock. Let's take a look at what's coming up this week. So I'm going to circle back around to talking about the full moon in Scorpio that is coming through today, Monday, May 12th. You can see as I begin right here, this is Monday morning, May 12th, and the moon is just a couple degrees away from full and only about 4 or 5 degrees off from an opposition to Uranus. So this is effectively a full moon in Scorpio that is opposing Uranus. That makes it quite dynamic, very powerful. So we're going to say something more about that after we go through everything else. Today, the other transit that is perfecting at the same time this powerful full moon in Scorpio comes through is we are also seeing a Mercury square to Pluto. So some pretty active transits on the day of a full moon. That Mercury square to Pluto, along with the full moon in Scorpio, will be our focus after we've made it through everything else. We'll kind of come back to that. So going forward, the other two major transits this week that we will be focusing on in terms of the content on this channel will be the Sun-Uranus conjunction that is taking place at around 27 degrees of Taurus. That's pretty close to the fixed star Algol. Very dynamic transit anytime the Sun conjoins, squares, or opposes Uranus or any outer planet. So we're going to be taking a look at that. This transit is, of course, happening Saturday. So we'll be experiencing the buildup to this transit, especially Wednesday through Saturday, and in the aftermath of it, Sunday, Monday. So May 17th, we've got the Sun conjoining Uranus. Now, one way of talking about that transit, which we will be focusing on this week, is in terms of the process of sudden breakthroughs, discovery, kind of eureka moments, moments of innovation, moments of rebellion or defiance, sudden shifts or changes of plot direction or ambition, liberation with respect to karma that is related to leaders or even solar figures, figures of authority, or figures like fathers or grandfathers. There's also a quality of revolution and unexpected dynamism that comes through toward the end of this week with that Sun conjunction to Uranus. I think that's a really exciting transit. I'm not too worried about it. However, I think that the transit that's happening right next to it is instructive. So on May 18th, that's Sunday, the very end of the week, if we go forward one more day, as the Sun and Uranus are just separating, I mean, they're still like within a degree, Mercury is going to hit a square to Mars. Now, Mercury-Mars squares can be very constructive, don't get me wrong, but let's start with what might be most problematic with this transit of Mercury square Mars on the 18th, alongside of the Sun-Uranus conjunction on the 17th. Mercury and Mars, when they come together, can bring bold, decisive, but also severe actions that are rooted in the desire to win or dominate or compete or cut down or suppress the competition. So Mercury Mars, for example, is in a way, it's a very athletic kind of aspect. Mercury was associated with sports, and so was Mars in ancient astrology. The two coming together can be about verbal or mental abusiveness in speech. That's a real shadow of that combination of Mercury and Mars. It can be about the war of words or ideas, or like almost like the image of a debate team, like a debate contest. Argumentation and rhetoric is Mercury Mars. Mercury Mars can be about cutting, incisive, executive, judgmental, fast moving thoughts, words, and actions that again kind of cut in a Mars way. When you pair that alongside of the Sun Uranus, are we looking at that kind of revolutionary impulse paired with something more hostile, conflict oriented, and aggressive? If that's the case, then we do have to be careful with the kind of inflammatory or reactionary energy that's coming through over the weekend, and just how we deal with that. Sun Uranus can get us pretty fired up about change, creativity, breaking the mold, trying new things. It has a truly exciting revolutionary spirit that that we use to describe the aspect between the Sun and Uranus. But when Mercury and Mars are squaring, it's as though there could be something more reactive, like a little too quick to press the gas pedal, not controlling words, speech, thoughts, ideas, becoming a little bit, again, sort of maybe zealous or extreme in our thinking. So when you pair those things together, it can be a little volatile. It can be about, I don't care what you think, I'm going to do what I want to do, or I'm going to create a change, but in a way that's very aggressive or, again, reactionary. Now, I would say the most constructive pairing of these two planets, when you put Mercury and Mars together in ancient astrology, they were often associated with things like math and science and analytics and strong executive decision-making qualities or capacity. Mercury and Mars is like a wise tactical like strategist. someone who can look at the information, sort through it, and design a best approach to win or achieve a certain result or to get the desired outcome. So it's very smart transit. It's very tactical. It's very strategic at its best. Alongside of the Sun and Uranus conjoining, could this be someone who suddenly has the moxie, the bravery, the courage, the right strategy to make a sudden change or to even defend or advocate for something, maybe even oneself? I'm not going to be talked to this way. I'm not going to be treated this way. I'm going to tell you what I really think. I'm going to break the mold. I mean, we'll think about Taurus, right? Mercury in a Venus ruled sign. Like, oh, I want to keep the peace. I want to be light. I want to be easy. But where is Venus, right? Venus, the host, is in Aries, Mars's sign, trining Mars. Feels like we might be just a little bit more willing to say or do things. Maybe we try to keep the peace the best we can, but the way in which we need to communicate or act still requires an incisive, direct, assertive approach, an approach that is strong and courageous on some level. So I would be watching for the actions, thoughts, and ideas to be a little heated and like a little hot. Still, with Venus trining Mars and Mercury in the superior position over Mars in a Venus ruled sign, Venus also in a superior trine to Mars in Leo, I would think that we would there's enough in Mercury and Venus taming Mars that I don't think the most egotistical, domineering, or bullying side of Mars would be as likely to come out. So I think that's good too. It kind of tempers things. I think there's a real Venusian current through all of this that says, let's be practical and peaceful here. Maybe the revolutionary thing is to speak the truth in love, peace, kindness from a steady, anchored place. Whatever the case may be, it is interesting to see these two transits right next to each other. Again, on the 17th, Saturday, we get the Sun-Uranus conjunction, but as it's just trailing off, I mean, it is very close to still being exact. On Sunday the 18th, then we get Mercury square to Mars. Now, this is also a Mercury who is turning invisible again. It is going behind the scenes because it's coming to within about 15 degrees of the sun. So I also wonder if some level of peace or diplomacy or tactfulness is happening behind the scenes or happening in a way that allows things to be smoothed over, outwardly. It's almost like there's something happening in the office. Let's have a few people sit down privately and talk. And then before you know it, the peace in the office space for everyone has been restored because of a little behind the scenes diplomacy. I could see something like that taking place with Mercury superior to Mars in this dynamic in a Venus ruled sign, with Venus trining Mars in a Mars ruled sign, but superior, right? There's this the feeling of like you should be able to smooth things out, even if there's some very intense mental or almost like ideological energy or dispute or confrontation or conflict that comes up over the weekend. I think also the question is, what is the breakthrough or the kind of the revolution of circumstance or life direction that I'm being called into right now? Sun-Uranus brings that up for all of us, which is why we'll do some horoscopes on it later in the week. But with the Sun-Uranus, there's always this sense of illumination and progress and breakthrough and discovery, and it's not the status quo any longer. So in the name of revolution, there's a little bit of mental, verbal, or even ideological conflict on the horizon at the end of this week. Sometimes I think we make the mistake, at least I know myself at times have made the mistake, so I assume that other people might be like me, right? And the mistake is that we think that in order to actualize an internal revolution of consciousness or mindset, some shift that's been meaningfully opening us within, that we have to externalize it by suddenly becoming combative or aggressive in this new stance or this new psychological positioning that we found ourselves in. For example, when I was first learning about holistic health, this is years ago, when I was working with ayahuasca and starting to get in touch with clean food and, you know, healthy lifestyle habits. There was a way in which, in order to actualize those revolutions for myself, I made the very youthful mistake. I was in my mid 20s of trying to press it on everyone else. And I hope I hope I don't look like a total fool in having done that. But I got a hold of myself. And over the years, I think it's a process of learning, oh yes, this is very exciting. This is very revolutionary. And I don't need to overcompensate by trying to press or assert something that has been a meaningful change for me onto other people, a meaningful change in perspective. When we get passionate about something, we experience a breakthrough in our thinking, our belief systems, the learning process of life suddenly delivers some real insights. There is this feeling that we suddenly need to shout it from the rooftops or correct anyone who thinks differently or oppose people who think something the opposite of us, even if 5 minutes ago we would have been one of those same people. So I would watch for getting swept up in the strength of our ideas and position and whatever feels most exciting, to not let it become a source of conflict within ourselves or for other people as much as possible. On the other hand, if there is a meaningful way in which we need to try to balance peacefulness and assertiveness in the midst of some breakthrough, because it is very common when we have breakthroughs for people to naturally oppose us. Oh, you no longer fit the idea of you that I was comfortable with, so now I'm going to give you a hard time. But sometimes we have to, in those moments, be willing to, kind of hold our ground a little bit. And other times it's the mantra that I've gotten from, Al-Anon, which is a 12-step group for people with family members of alcoholics that my wife and I have attended. What you think of me is none of my business. That's a mantra that we can tell ourselves when we feel like we're getting sucked into trying to adapt or, be what other people need or want, even if it may be detrimental to ourselves. We can kind of go, what you think of me isn't my business. So now, of course, like if you're in intimate relationships with people where give and take is really important, I don't want to suggest that we live in some kind of vacuum where relationality and thoughtfulness about who we are in relation to one another isn't a really important factor, because it is. But there are certain things, certain relationships in life that aren't worth that struggle, that aren't worth catering to what someone else thinks of you that you don't have a close relationship with, who doesn't really know you. Someone at work suddenly thinks, gosh, this new style you've adopted really isn't you. And they feel like they have to tell you that. Well, that's what you think of me is none of my business. That it's appropriate in a place like that, So anyway, take those thoughts and advice if it's useful, Now, that brings us back to today. Let us now go backward in time to the beginning of this week today to explore the major transits that we are dealing with to start our week. As promised, circling back to the full moon in Scorpio that's coming through today while Mercury is square to Pluto. I want you guys to notice how the week is bookended by two very similar events: a hard Mercury square, right? And a very Uranian dynamic. We have a full moon in Scorpio, the sign of the moon's fall, bringing up the moon-Mars tension archetypally. That's why that dignity category exists. That's why Mars is in its fall in the moon sign. The moon is in its fall in Mars's sign of Scorpio. Those two together can be a very creative but also very tense combination. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But that full moon is opposing Uranus at the same time that Mercury is squaring Pluto. At the end of the week, the sun conjoins Uranus while Mercury squares Mars. And that means that effectively Mercury is bringing the Mars-Pluto opposition back together. See how that works? So it's a symbolic way of saying that Mercury is sort of reweaving Mars and Pluto back together by aspecting both from a square. It's almost like a T-square, but a T-square that's in the aftershock or aftermath zone of the Mars-Pluto opposition. So first of all, with the full moon in Scorpio, what are the things to watch for? I'm going to close this so that I can, we'll just get the chart off the screen. So the full moon in Scorpio, to me, is all about understanding how moon and Mars interact. So what are the best things that come from the interaction of Moon and Mars. When Moon is in Scorpio, we get depth, intensity of emotion, the willingness to experience change or catharsis, the willingness to examine, explore, and release attachments, especially when they're not healthy, the natural process of attachments being relinquished, and the almost the promise of impermanence, and of cutting or separating of attachments. Where the Moon represents attachment by its very nature, the Moon is the planet that represents the attachment of the spirit to a body. How? Because the spirit is the light and the Moon is the reflective dish it shines in and through, off from, so to speak. So in that way, the Moon was associated with the body and the material world itself, which was thought to be a reflection of the divine or eternal forms. That is sort of one of the philosophical foundations of ancient astrology. So when we have the Moon paired with Mars, we have a really interesting combination because Mars is a planet that severs or cuts. The Moon is something that attaches. If you think of the Moon as mother, we're talking about attachment and bondedness, devotion, care, concern. Those are all like healthy forms of parental attachment that we all need to grow up. In fact, many of the traumas that we see with people who have Moon in Scorpio or Mars in Cancer will involve, my mom was sick, or maybe my mom was really angry or not safe, or those are some of the darker or heavier things that you might see with Moon Pluto or Moon Scorpio or Moon Mars or Mars Cancer. So there's many good things too. Don't get me wrong. I'll get to those. But that sense of cutting and severing, separating us from attachments, that is a Moon Mars combination. It's like, think of the image of the umbilical cord being cut. That severing of attachments is a painful part, but a necessary part of life. So a Moon in Scorpio can bring emotional individuation, a catharsis that separates or severs various forms of attachment, but maybe those that aren't really good for us, that are stunting our growth somehow. Or it brings us to spaces of catharsis or sort of critical mass in various relationships or spheres of life, or career, or any other sphere of life, where a process of change, transformation, impermanence, where one form of attachment that maybe has served a purpose is no longer going to be functional. And so there's a severing or cutting of a mode of life, a way of life, a soul contract with another being, or any other form of emotional or physical attachment that is reaching a moment of death. But by death, we just mean that there's like a cord cutting. So think of this as a moment that can be a particularly revolutionary moment of cord cutting, because this full moon is not only in Scorpio, Mars's sign, but is opposing Uranus, the god of liberation, a god that is associated with sudden, quick, unexpected freeing up of stuck or pent up energy, blocks, obstacles. Uranus loves to remove those. So a very strong signature of relinquishing attachments or of sudden emotional breakthroughs that serve to free or liberate, maybe even providing us with greater peace, stability, ease, Taurian things, but requiring some moment of impermanence and letting go, which is quite common for the sign of Scorpio in general. So you put those things together. The best of it is the willingness to be deep, the willingness to relinquish attachments that are unhealthy, to let go, to transform, to quickly, suddenly experience liberation emotionally. Wow, such powerful, supportive, evolutionary energy in this full moon today. Now, at the exact same time, anytime there is critical mass, catharsis, depth, intensity, relinquishment of attachments, themes of impermanence, and breakthrough, it can be disruptive. So we can experience that as disrupting our rhythms, or coming things that happen quickly and rather unexpectedly that are like twists of plot or circumstance would be quite common for a full moon like this. But it's going to look different for every person, again, depending on where it lands in your birth chart, right? At the same time today, we have Mercury squaring Pluto. Now, to me, this is a pretty nice pairing. Let's just put this up on the real-time clock again, and I'll show you what this looks like. So Mercury's in the sign of Taurus, creating a little square to Pluto in Aquarius. So don't be surprised if, along with those full moon Uranian themes we just described, Scorpio to Taurus, that we also experience transitions in how we're thinking or communicating, important forms of communication with other people, perhaps that those that are surprisingly deep and powerful. So there's a kind of surge around the god of communication when it hits Pluto. That's very powerful, transformative, deep, intense. There's a reason, of course, that modern astrologers associate Pluto with Scorpio. I think it's a pretty decent pairing. It's also why the moon and Pluto share something in common to the way we might delineate the moon in Scorpio. Anyhow, the point being that when the messenger Mercury, hits Pluto, that's a provocative, deep surging of energy and information, mental, intellectual, ideological, technological. It's the powerful exchange you don't mean to get into, but you do, and you learn a lot from it, but you might not do the same thing going forward. Like all of us have probably stumbled into a debate or a meaningless argument online somewhere. It's probably been, a Mercury-Pluto dynamic or Mercury-Uranus or whatever, even Mercury-Neptune. We lose our mind and lose our boundaries and get drawn into something that is dramatic and unnecessary. Be careful of that today, right? At the same time, Mercury and Pluto empowers us mentally, intellectually, verbally. If there's something that needs to be communicated, and it needs to be communicated for the sake of relinquishing an unhealthy attachment or experiencing a healthy emotional level of catharsis or healing or release, if it is facilitating a breakthrough, even if it's hard or deep, this transit suggests that a level of honesty and a level of forthrightness in our communication will probably be very useful right now. The Mercury-Pluto dynamic can also be about uncovering things or things coming to the light or the surface that you couldn't see or were not aware of. That information suddenly appearing from the underworld, from the messenger, that could be exactly what is sort of triggering the powerful catharsis that the full moon opposite Uranus implies. You could look at it that way as well. All right. Well, I think we've given some good treatment to all of that. What I want to do to close is I'm going to now isolate this full moon in Scorpio. And what I would like to do is just run through the fixed signs who are receiving this transit in your angular houses. And then later in the week, I will be doing horoscopes for the Sun-Uranus conjunction for all 12 signs. But if you are a Taurus rising, the first fixed sign in order, this full moon is landing in the house of love and relationships. It's also the house that usually pertains to things happening in the life of a spouse or partner or in important social interactions. So watch for a distinctly social, relational, or interpersonal sphere in which that full moon is appearing if you're a Taurus. Now, that could be coupled, of course, with some significant breakthroughs personally that are coming for you as the week continues. We go to Leos, we're seeing that this full moon is in your fourth house of home and family, of roots, of the private or internal sphere of life. So we might consider the cathartic moment of the full moon today in relation to that more private, domestic side of things, but also pulling on some tension in the more public or professional sphere as the week goes on. Now, for Scorpios, this is in your first house, which means the catharsis is very personal. It's existential. It might even be physical or emotional. It has to do with who you are and how you're changing, or what attachments you're letting go of personally in the name of growing and individuating. Of course, as the week goes on, the Sun-Uranus dynamic may be facilitating breakthroughs as well in the house of relationships. And then for Aquarians, we're looking at the full moon in your career house or the public sphere, your interaction with the more civic social dimensions of life out there in the world. There is a kind of breakthrough depicted in that 10th house, a catharsis, a shift, a change, maybe relinquishing attachments in that world, or the death and rebirth process implied by the full moon in Scorpio. Now, pulling in the opposite direction might be the shifting of dynamics within the home or family as a revolutionary quality between the Sun and Uranus that's going on in your fourth house. Again, progressively as the week goes on, that'll come through over the weekend. So just some brief treatments of all of the fixed signs. At the beginning of the week, if you're new to my channel, I always do horoscopes for whoever's getting the major trans of the week in the angular houses, whatever signs those are. That's what I'll focus on. And then typically I'll do some horoscopes for everyone later in the week on one of the bigger transits of the week. That way, you're not missing out on everything. A tip though, if you know your houses, look at the whole sign house of Scorpio today for some insight as to where that shift that we described might be coming. All right, well, I'm going to sign off now, and you will get an informational video about the Year 1 program. There are many reasons to study astrology, but in my opinion, there are two that I would highly recommend you consider. And if you can check either box, then come study with us. One is that if this is a language that you can't help but see the world through, and it's like an important language that's a part of your psyche, or it's become part of your psyche and your outlook on life, then learning the language in a structured, guided approach and community within a lineage that has teachers and a history behind it, and not just mine, but maybe a few of them in your life, is really worth doing at some point, because it's going to give you so many more tools and the confidence to really become more of your own astrologer. And the more you're able to do that, the more of an ally this can become for your spiritual life. The second reason would be that you love astrology and this is a language you speak, and you might be good at offering it to other people. You might be someone who could, with a little bit more training and work and practice, give readings. And there is a need for that in the world. There's no shortage of people whose lives can be deeply moved and can find great value in a good reading. We try to make really successful readers through our 4 years of curriculum. So check out the first year program coming up next. All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It is our first year course in Hellenistic astrology that begins at the end of June. June 22nd is our starting date. I'm going to take you over to the course page to tell you more about the program and what you will learn while you are in it. So here we go over to the Nightlight Astrology website. You can find this at nightlightastrology.com. Click on the courses tab, go to the first year course. Now, this program is ideal for people who maybe have a little bit of background already in astrology. Maybe you've done some studying on your own independently, taken some courses or webinars and workshops, but you're looking to deepen your understanding of astrology. And maybe Hellenistic astrology in particular has been calling to you. I'll tell you more about what Hellenistic astrology is in a minute, but on the first year course page, you're going to find everything that the course includes. I want to make the structure of the course clear first, and then at the end, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons that I think anyone might have for studying astrology, and you can see if you check any of those boxes. First of all, there are 30 classes on the year. It's just a little under a year-long program with 30 webinars. Every webinar is 2 to 3 hours long, including a lively Q&A and conversational section after we finished our lesson for the day. Each of those lessons I lead personally through live webinars, so you can attend those live. If you want to follow along at your own pace in your own time, on your own schedule, you can always look at the recordings and take those in. And I'm going to show you what the class page looks like so you can see how you can interact with the course as uniquely and creatively as you want to. But you can either attend the live webinars or listen to the recordings, or audio or video. In between major units of study within those 30 classes, we have separate classes outside of the 30 classes that are essentially tutoring sessions led by our staff, our course directors. We have 3 of them for our first year program, 3 tutors that help me guide every single class you're in and lead study sessions, and are also staffing an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions, look at charts, practice what you're learning with all of your classmates and with tutors there to help you. They'll always answer questions within a business day. So it's a really well-staffed, well-structured program. In between those major units of study and the breakout sessions, we also have guest speakers that come in throughout the year that you get free access to. The recordings are archived for you in your class folders. So you're getting people within our curriculum, and you're also getting to visit with some astrologers who are outside of the Nightlight School, but we really admire their work, and so we bring them in. You also have a ton of bonus material. With every lesson, we have recommended quizzes, study guides, optional reading. And that allows people who are really, really, intense, deep, like studious types to go as far as you want to with the material, while other people who are maybe, content to take things in at, just kind of taking in the classes, that's there for you too. So you can kind of go as deeply as you want to. The class, if as the year goes on, goes through major units of study in ancient Hellenistic astrology. So if you're not familiar with ancient Hellenistic astrology, this is the earliest form of horoscopic astrology. This is where the astrology that you've probably learned today comes from originally. And that makes some of its features unique. Like, for example, ancient astrologers utilized whole sign houses. We study why they used whole sign houses, how they used them, and we study the why behind really everything: houses, signs, planets, aspects, dignities, essential and accidental dignities, delineation approaches. How do you read and predict within a natal chart? All of those theoretical areas of astrology we not only learn how to do, but we learn the why behind it. And this is what I think people find most empowering about the course, is that ancient astrology really helps to give you the rationale for everything so that you have the insight available to go off script. What I mean by that is, like, let's say you're learning about a sign, Aries or Taurus or a Gemini, something like that. Ancient astrology won't just give you a list of the adjectives or keywords or descriptions of, say, a sign or a planet. It will give you an underlying philosophical explanation that then allows you to extrapolate from it the kinds of lists that you read in textbooks, which means you'll have an understanding of why everything on a list in a textbook is there in the first place. And you'll also have the insight and creativity available to add things to the list that are a part of your own unique intuition and contribution to astrology. And this is what ancient astrologers wanted students of astrology to learn: the why behind everything. So this is a class where, even though you're seeing things like planet signs, houses, dignities, aspects, and you're like, oh, I've already learned about those things. Not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology. I don't mean to sound condescending, but like, truly, most people's experience coming through this program is, wow, I had no idea all that I didn't know about the roots of everything that I've understood thus far about astrology. So it really is about digging into the philosophical core of why we do everything. And then you have greater intuitive and creative capacity as an astrological craftsman or craftswoman. So anyway, that's a brief explanation of why I think Hellenistic astrology is important. Not to mention that ancient astrology was really focused on our ability to accurately describe and predict things in the realm of karma, fate, and destiny, whereas modern astrology's hallmark and strength is psychological depth. And so when you put the two together in our program, which is why it's called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, I think you have something really special. So on that note, you can see everything that we cover here. So there's a video with some of our alumni you can watch. Everything is there on the page. Now, there are 5 reasons that I want to touch on briefly before I tell you about your payment options and need-based tuition. These are 5 reasons to study astrology that if you mark any of these boxes, especially if you mark several of them, then I think it's a good indication that you might be ideal for this program, might be an ideal fit. So the first one is, if you find that astrology has become a part of your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly spiritual practice, it is a part of how you lead an inner life, then there is nothing more empowering than deepening your connection to that language, because that puts you more in the driver's seat. It's always good to have astrologers that you rely on, teachers that you listen to, get a little objective perspective, especially when you're looking at your own chart through a reading. But there's really nothing more empowering than learning to speak the language at a deeper level for yourself. And if that calls to you, if you want to understand things and be able to speak more confidently and clearly about this sacred language that you love, and this is a great reason to take a structured program. Number 2 is that you feel called to read charts for people. Look, not everyone who takes our programs is on a professional track, but we have 4 years worth of professional training programs at Nightlight that will prepare you to read professionally for others if that's the path that you're on. Maybe you don't even know if you're on that path. That's fine too. Many people take our programs just for the sake of their own personal enrichment, and again, to be kind of more in the driver's seat with respect to your astrological journey. You have more of an understanding. You can be more confident in reading symbols and experiencing transits with your own understanding that you've cultivated. But sometimes people want to read for other people. This will definitely set you up to do that. We have a certification track where you can take exams at the end of every year. They're optional. You don't have to if you're not on that level of interest. Number 3, You have done a lot of self-study. You've heard things from here and there, but you're looking to bring it all together. It is overwhelming to study astrology on your own. So if you want organization, structure, and coherence, what you're getting in this program is going on 15 years of training astrologers, 15 years of developing curriculum that has in mind the overwhelm that many people experience. And this program is structured year 1, year 2, year 3, however far you want to go with our curriculum, to give you an organized, structured, coherent way of understanding the history and language of astrology from both ancient times to modern times in all of the vastness that the field includes. And also, as we go, we want to give you the confidence that you are a part now of an astrological lineage. Astrology has always been practitioner based. Coming through Nightlight, you are going to have the opportunity to feel aligned with a lineage. If you like my work, if you feel aligned with the way I speak the language, then this might be a good reason to come study with us. Now, if you're seeking the why behind things, if you're like, yeah, that's interesting, I get it, I understand, but why? Why signs? What's the difference between a sign and a house? Why do they ever come up with a sign and a house? What's the distinction philosophically? Why does Mars represent this? Why does Mars in this sign represent that? If you are someone who feels empowered by understanding the why behind things, you are going to love this program, because that's how I am as a teacher. That's how I am as a person. And that's what this program is really all about. Number 5, you are looking for astrological community. Look, I think Nightlight is unique in terms of the kind of warmth, acceptance, safety, and inclusiveness that our community includes intellectually, spiritually. We are really pride ourselves on being a peaceful kind of family. I'm a Cancer, right? So it's kind of a family-oriented environment. So anyway, I will end it there. If you check any of those boxes, you may want to consider studying with us. Now, I'm going to take you over to 2 things. I want to show you the dashboard. So here is the Thinkific page. You're going to join this, and on your dashboard, you're going to find any courses that you've enrolled in at Nightlight, and there are many, so you may end up in being involved in multiple courses, and you'll find that they're all there on your dashboard. Click on one of them, and it will take you in. You're going to find that on the left-hand side, there's orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar, all the technical stuff you need to know when you join the course. And then you're going to find that when you go through the lessons, that the lesson includes the video, the audio, the slides, the transcripts, the Q&A box text if you couldn't make it live and see what people were talking about, flashcards, homework, a bonus PDF with all sorts of additional recommended reading, bonus videos, additional video links for bonus material. So every single time that you want to visit something within the course, everything is nicely organized. So you can see here, I'm going to pause this before it starts going, but you can embed the video right there. It's embedded and you can watch it. And then if you wanted to, you could also, right here, you could also download the video and watch it on your own device. And that's same for the audio as well. And then as you go, you'll see all of the lessons are laid out. The study sessions are also recorded if you can't make those live. So everything is nicely arranged on the website for you. And that makes it a course that if you wanted to take 3 years to accomplish, you could take 3 years to accomplish. If you want to take it for the sake of getting certified, you have the full year plus an additional year to take the exam. So, 2 years total that we give people if you're on a professional track. But most people complete the program in a year. And a lot of people, over 50% of our students, go on to our year 2 and then our year 3 and horary programs as well. Now, final thing I'm going to show you is right here. You're going to find here is the enrollment options at the bottom of the first year course page. Again, this is at nightlightastrology.com, and you're going to click on the first year course, go to the bottom. The early bird payment saves you several $100s off the cost of the course. That's available till May 15th. Early bird installment plan saves you on the installment plan, regular cost of the course. That's also only available until May 15th. And then need-based tuition. All of our programs include a need-based option where we give you a sliding scale and we say, you pick your monthly tuition number within this sliding scale, which is greatly reduced off the normal tuition price. That is for people who are on a fixed or limited income, receiving disabilities, single mom, whatever the case might be. We want to make sure that nobody's priced out of studying astrology. So you don't have to feel any shame. If that is you, if you need help, if you want to take this, but you need to make it work within a tight budget, we get it. Times are tough right now. We don't think people should be priced out of studying a sacred subject like astrology. So we've been offering need-based pricing for 15 years. Nightlight is a donation-based school. It started that way. We have a sliding scale, so it's kind of like donation. You get to choose your rate anyhow. So if that's something that will help you, please use it. Thank you for listening to this. I hope it gave you a really deep and comprehensive introduction to what the course is all about and why you might find it exciting to come study with us starting at the end of June. So any questions you have about the program as you're visiting the course, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be glad to talk about anything that you have questions about. We are here and we have a wonderful staff of people at Nightlight who will be a part of your learning experience and are all glad to help you. All right, that's it. We'll see you again later. Bye.